Hello and welcome to another episode of the Video Creator Podcast. I am Grant, here with my co-host Augie, and today we are going to talk about the real pros and cons of running a YouTube channel. Now, I think running a YouTube channel gets idealized. There's a lot of people who romanticize it in their head. Maybe you're sitting in a cubicle and you think, man, if I could own a YouTube channel and be like these guys sitting in front of a camera, saying things, being famous, then my life would be drastically different. And indeed, it would be different. But would it actually be better? Is this actually a good fit? And do you have a realistic grasp on what it takes to succeed as a YouTuber? Today, we are going to dive deep into that subject and get real and not romanticize anything. All right, first, when we talk about pros and cons, let's get specific with what I mean and what category we're talking about here. So, full-time or part-time YouTube, this is a different life. So part-time YouTube, you are probably working a normal job, at least part-time. You know, whether that's a 9 to 5, maybe you're working at a coffee shop or a bookstore or whatever. The point is, with part-time, you have something else that is paying your bills, and you are not financially relying on YouTube to pay all of your bills. This takes a certain amount of pressure off. So the pro of part-time YouTube is that you get to be creative without the pressure of having to pay all of your bills with your creativity. And obviously the advantage here is there's less stress associated. And less stress is nice. I think a lot of people, the idea of being full-time YouTube sounds awesome, but you have to carry that pressure and live with it every day of, you know, are you delivering? Can you actually create the video that you needed to create in order to make your channel thrive for another week, another day, another month, whatever? There's a lot of pressure associated with that. So I'd say the pressure it's a pro and a con, right? The pressure kind of forces you to create, but the con is you can crumble if you aren't really ready for it. All right, so that's a realistic look at kind of the pressure, the pros and cons of being part-time. Augie, like, what are some pros and cons of being full-time, would you say?
Yeah, start with the full-time. So the pros is that you get to live your dream life, right? Like so many things in life, like for me personally, like I always imagined this dream life where I wasn't working a 9 to 5, and so that I could control my time, right? So I don't have to, clock in a certain time, clock out, that I can do what I want. Like for one instance is like here locally, everyone goes and plays basketball, or I guess the gym is open for adults like at noon. And if you work a normal 9 to 5 job, you can't go play basketball at noon. And I knew that for many, many years. And I was always like, someday I'm going to, quit my job and go full time in this entrepreneurship stuff. And at that time, I'm going to be living my dream life. I'm going to go play basketball every day at noon. And so that's the biggest pro to me, at least, is that you get to control your own time and be your own boss, which is good and bad. I mean, it's challenging, but yeah, I think that's definitely the pro. Just a quick con, and we're going to dive deeper into all these, I'm sure. But one quick con I would say about going full time is, and the main thing is that it's kind of like a little bit unreliable, right? Like let's say you're making $80,000 a year at your job, and then you're doing YouTube part time, and eventually now you're making $80,000 a year on YouTube. You're like, okay, I replaced my income. I'm going to quit my job and go all in on YouTube. Like, I don't think that that's a good move. And I don't think you're at the point on YouTube to where you should quit your job, because YouTube is very volatile. Like you might be 80,000 this month. They might change the algorithm. They might, all of a sudden not accept your type of content, or for whatever reason, or maybe just the ad revenue on your type of content drops drastically. So it's very volatile. So I would say, like, if you are going to quit your job and go full time on YouTube, like, look to like 2x what you need for your living expenses, or 2x maybe what your salary is. And once you're making that from YouTube, like maybe you're making 160 grand, then I think, okay, you're at the point now you can comfortably, give up your day job and go all in on YouTube. So that's the con is here today, gone tomorrow. You don't really know. There's risk involved.
Definitely. And I think like the freedom, that's the double-edged sword, right? You have the ability to play basketball at noon or whenever you want, but it comes at the cost of that volatility. So what is important to you? And some of this depends on how young you are. You know, in my early 20s, I quit my programming job where I was making good money to make way less as a YouTuber, but I didn't have kids or anything. I didn't even have a girlfriend at the time, and it made sense to me. And I don't have any regrets about that. And it was totally worth it. I was always able to pay my bills. It was just like, you know, I wasn't able to put as much aside as I would have if I had just stayed at that job. So I don't, again, that was an amazing move. I feel like I grew a lot having to do that. But that was a personal choice. And if you aren't willing to fail and kind of be financially not where you want to be, then think twice, or take Augie's advice and make sure you're making twice as much on YouTube as you were at your normal job, so that you have a big buffer zone, so that you know that you will not only be able to pay your living expenses, but also be able to, say, buy a house or kind of these higher goals that you probably aren't going to be able to do if you're making, you know, like 40 grand a year or something. But yeah, so let's move on. So this is one huge pro for me that may not apply to everybody, but the opportunity to be creative on a daily basis. So this was really important for me. I'm kind of an angsty guy. I have a lot of thoughts in my head, and I find that if I'm able to express myself every day in some way, then that is really therapeutic. It is deeply important to me. Now, there's a lot of ways to run a YouTube channel. You might not be that creative of a person. So again, this may not apply, but it's, for me, I found it was really, I was able to, I feel like, become a better version of myself, you know, having to write a script and then say it into a camera with charisma. Over the years, I saw a clear progression. You know, I got more comfortable in conversations. My social anxiety got a lot better because I just was so used to talking. You know, live streaming, it was like you basically become a professional talker, a professional air filler. But yeah, I guess so. Augie, what are some cons you think of being creative on a daily basis?
Yeah, it's hard. Like that part is hard. I mean, to you, you're a creative person. You said all that. A lot of people, they don't relate with that. And so, you know, for like me personally, right, coming up with a new topic every day, or, you know, maybe just twice a week, can be challenging. You know, we talk about YouTube burnout all the time, and a lot of times I don't think it's really the editing or the, you know, any of that kind of stuff. A lot of times the burnout comes from the writer's block, basically, right? You know, like for me on my basketball training channel, I released 300 videos, and I know I got to a point to where I was like, okay, I've done everything. Like there's no other basketball training tutorial that I can do. And you feel like you can't repeat the same video topic again. But for people that are having creative blocks, like you totally can. Like take an old one that did well for you and redo it and make it better, make it longer, make it go deeper. And it's a totally different video. And you won't get in trouble with YouTube for that. And your viewers, the truth is, they don't watch every single one of your videos, right? They might have searched up how to shoot a layup in basketball and watched that video, really enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. Maybe they clicked on my channel, watched a couple more videos. Maybe the next few weeks, the algorithm promoted one or two more videos to them. But I have 300 videos. They're not watching all the videos. So yeah, I would say that you definitely can recreate videos and make them better. But yeah, that's like, you know, one of the cons, I think, of being creative every day is it's not easy for everyone.
Hey there. You probably know the Video Creator Show is brought to you by VidChops.com. What is VidChops.com? Well, it is an editing service that will take the horrible burden of editing off your back. We all know video editing. It's tedious. It takes forever. But what if you had a professional who did it for you? You go to sleep, you wake up, it's done. Wouldn't that be magical? VidChops.com. Hire a professional, save yourself time and energy, and take your YouTube channel to the next level. Yeah, like creativity is a weird process. Like when I was working a coding job or just working at Target or whatever, like a more normal job, I felt like it was easier to consistently show up and just kind of do what needed to be done. But with creativity and like an audience watching, especially the types of videos I was making, which were kind of philosophical, and I felt like I needed to say something about a game that nobody had heard before. There was a lot of pressure on that, and there were weeks where it felt like I just couldn't do it, and I knew that I had to do it to pay the bills. Whereas if I could have just showed up and made some coffee for people and got a paycheck, like that would have been easier. Actually, one of my friends, she is dead set on this idea of if you really want to be successful and an artist, you should have a mindless job and then just do art on the side, at least until, you are so successful that it's obvious that this is a good idea. But if you don't do that, then you're kind of like, then you have to deal with this intense pressure of having to deliver on a very consistent basis that might not work for you, especially if you're going through a hard time in life. It can be dangerous. But I feel like we're getting a little dramatic here, or at least I am. But it's something to consider, and I think it's important. Like Augie, did you feel with Baller Bootcamp that there were weeks where you just couldn't think of a topic? I know you said you made hundreds of videos, and you were like, well, I can't think of another video. I guess I could rehash some older ones. But like, what was that like? What did that feel like? Was there an anxiety there? Did you feel like a loser? Did you feel like a fraud? Or was it just kind of like, maybe I'm done with this? Walk us through your emotions. I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't too much creativity and stuff that went into that. Like it literally was just me, coming up or thinking of a drill that I've used personally in the past with myself or kids I coached, and then just explaining it over camera and kind of using a almost like a structure where it was like intro where I tried to hook them. Then it would be me explaining the drill, walking through it. And then I would always be like, all right, now let's take a look at that live. And then it would be like some music and me just doing the drill live, full speed. And then a little outro. And, because I had that structure and stuff, I didn't really feel a lot of like the creative pressure. I just felt like, hey, you got to come up with some new fancy drill. Like what's the next fancy drill you can kind of think of? I guess that's where the creativity came in. But what I did is, and this is a good strategy that I recommend. I mean, we know the algorithm loves longer videos that keep people watching to get you that watch time. So, look at your past videos, find some that have done well. So for me, it was how to do crossover. And then I would say, all right, well, I've made like 2 or 3 crossover videos. Now I'm going to make like the ultimate guide. And I would create, 5 different kinds of crossovers. It would be like a 15-minute video. And those would do well. Those would do really well. So not only did I look and say, okay, crossover videos do well, but then I said, okay, now I'm going to make the ultimate crossover video. And it would do well. So the creative part never really caught me up too bad. For me, it was more of just the grind of, feeling like I didn't have to wake up early and go to the gym and shoot the videos. I was like, why am I doing this still? That was more of the hard part. It's, and that's a con right there is, you have to be kind of self-sufficient, right? You don't have a boss. You're not clocking in. And so if you can't handle that, then you're not going to be successful. You got to really be able to kind of be self-disciplined and have all those kind of traits in order to do it. And one other thing I'll add is, we're talking about going full-time on YouTube, but I would never go full-time on YouTube unless you're like one of the major, Mr. Beast types, unless you have a full business behind your YouTube channel, because as your views drop or as they plateau, like you're going to want to have something else to rely on if you are full time, to just make sure that you have the income coming in, and that, you know, you got to treat it like a business, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If you go full time and you quit a job or whatever, like it's a business. Like do not forget that for one moment. And you know, doing part-time YouTube and even like part-time YouTube business, like that's great. Like do that for 4 years. And if you do that for 4 years, you'll be at a place to where you're like, okay, now I think I might be able to quit my job, or maybe I can go part-time at work and focus more on the channel. But the thing you do not want to do is say, hey, I'm going to start a YouTube channel next week, so I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to start that channel, because it's a long-term play. We all know that.
Totally agree. Let's move on to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is a YouTube channel is an opportunity to explore a subject of your choosing deeply. And this is a pro because it allows you to obsess about something. You know, maybe there's a topic in your head that you always want to read about, you want to know more about it, but it's hard to find maybe a reason for it. Or maybe you even want some validation about your obsession with this topic. So, for instance, there's a channel called Daily Stoic. The guy who runs it his name is Ryan Holiday, and essentially what this guy does is he's really big on the philosophy of Stoicism. So, a lot of like Greek philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, like these guys that we all know. He's essentially become an expert in their philosophies. And he clearly does his best to live his life by the way that they advise. And I think this channel, I mean, he has 719,000 subscribers. I think when you start reading and then you start sharing information in video form, and people start watching it, it kind of instills in you a feeling of, oh, wow, this is important. And clearly he already had that within himself. I don't think he needed an audience to tell him that necessarily. But I've found that when I share an idea and other people are resonating with it, it feeds back to me. And this can be huge. Like, I'm sure his YouTube channel, if he didn't have it and he was just reading these books, you know, would he actually be exercising every day? Would he actually be meditating as much? Would he, you know, and he also gets the opportunity to refine his opinions about these philosophies, right? So even if he's in like a casual conversation with friends and this comes up organically, you know, I hope he's not like proselytizing when he's just having dinner with his family or whatever. I doubt he is. He seems like a balanced guy. But it does have the advantage here is you get to really refine your opinion about something. And that can be amazing. It can feel like you actually know what you're talking about. I think we've all had the experience of, you know, we read an interesting idea or concept and it kind of blows our mind. And then you share it with somebody and they're like, yeah, okay, dude. But when you have a channel, you kind of learn how to share certain ideas and how to share them in a way that people will grasp and actually be interested in. And I think when you're able to talk about something that's important to you, it makes it that much more important to you, and it makes it that much easier to actually live by the standard that these ideas are setting. So exploring a topic deeply, YouTube is a wonderful, wonderful place to do that. And obviously in Augie's case, you know, he was able to explore basketball drills, like how to be better at basketball deeply. It doesn't have to be some heady philosophy stuff. It could be sports and, you know, working with your body, things like that. So Augie, can you think of any cons? Like why might it be bad to obsess about a topic deeply?
Yeah, you know, all the stuff you just said is great. And the biggest con there is that it can become a job, right? So, and that's definitely what happened with me is I was on this path. And another pro is like, it's your passion, right? Basketball is my passion. I was able to make money from my passion. And that's, the question that I get all the time is like, what should I start a channel on? Or what should I start my online business? What should I do? It's like, well, what are you passionate about? And if you find something you're passionate about and you can actually do what I did and become an authority in that niche, right? So you're passionate about X, you start creating YouTube videos, you become an authority about X, and then you get to make an impact in the world of X. And so that's a huge pro right there. And that's probably the number one thing. Like the number one thing for me is the good life. Like I'm looking to set myself up to live the life where I get to spend time with my family, be around my kids, drop them off at school, get to play basketball, be my own boss, all that kind of stuff. But the second part is the impact that you get to make in the niche that you're passionate about, and helping others. Now, with that said, like I said just a minute ago, the con there is that, okay, this could become a job. And you could burn out and you could get sick of talking about stoicism. If you're Ryan Holiday, which I'm sure he is, like I'm sure at this point he's facing, 700,000 subscribers, you said. And I don't know how many videos, but I'm guessing he's in the over 300 videos.
It says 448.
448. Okay. So, he's definitely at the point now where he's fighting that creative block, all those kind of things. And it's so funny that you brought him up because I literally bought the Daily Stoic book yesterday on Amazon.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And I was Googling just some philosophies and stuff. And I've known about Ryan Holiday for a long time. He's done a really good job with that business and just kind of put stoicism kind of on the map again. But yeah, that's my answer is, it's going to become a job and it's going to come a time where you're kind of sick of this, so that's what I would worry about.
Yeah, totally. Like you can burn too quickly through something that you once loved. This happened to me with video games. It was like, and I originally with video games, oh, this game looks cool, I will play it. Wow, that was a fun game. What an enjoyable experience. Then it becomes a job. Then it was like if I covered a certain game, then views would be really good. If I covered a different kind of game, views would be bad. So then every time I would play a game that wasn't going to get good views, it was like, well, am I wasting time here? Should I be playing a different game? It kind of starts messing with your head. This thing that you once were passionate about becomes, as you said, a job. And it can kind of infiltrate your mind and start corrupting this pure thing that you once had. This doesn't necessarily have to happen, but this, I think, it comes back to full-time versus part-time, right? With full-time, it's more likely to happen that this is going to corrupt this thing that you love. With part-time, again, there just isn't as much pressure. You can just play some games you like and not worry too much about it if you have a video game channel, because your normal job is going to pay the bills, and that is going to be that, and you're going to be fine. You don't have to worry about it. When you dive into a topic, I think you can get really wring every ounce of value out of it. But the problem with that is if you feel like you have wrung every ounce of value out of this thing, then it's like, well, is it even worth doing this thing anymore? I've built a channel, gotten this many views, gotten a certain amount of validation, and this is the best case scenario, right? Then you might find there's nowhere left to go. And that is kind of depressing, what now? I've built this thing. I've run out of ideas, at least for now. What do I do now? And that I've found myself in that situation with Treesicle. I'm still pushing through it and am glad I did it, but it did create a sort of identity crisis of, well, if I don't like this anymore, then who am I? It's just some food for thought. It's I think this is par for the course. It's one of the risks you run, kind of getting sick of something that you once loved. But again, I feel like we start with the pros, end with the cons, not trying to get too depressing here. Just that's a perspective that is important to have. So the next thing I wanted to talk about with YouTube is the ability to collaborate with anybody you want. So you don't have a boss, right? So if you're working a normal job, you probably have to get the green light from your boss in order to do anything really. Even if you have somewhat of a creative job, somebody in a suit might read your script and say, "Nah, you can't work with this person. You can't do that." But with YouTube, you can send a DM to anybody. Slide into their DMs. "Hey, man, love your videos. How do you?" You get to talking. Then all of a sudden, "Hey, I'm gonna be in your neck of the woods next week. Maybe we could hang out, film a video together." This allows you to meet interesting people and just get to know people that you may look up to or respect, and that can be a beautiful thing. They say don't meet your heroes, but I think it's important to meet your heroes because if they suck, then you now have a clearer idea of who this person is than before. I think looking at somebody and not wanting to know who they truly are is a little silly. Especially as an adult, right? I think you should look at the world for what it is. So you have the ability to collaborate with whoever you want, assuming they want to collaborate with you, of course. This opens a lot of creativity. So with Teresical, I was able to collaborate with some other gaming YouTubers, for instance, a guy named Loxton. He has a very successful Pokemon channel. His channel's called Noggin, and now we're friends. I go to his house sometimes. He's got oh my God, he has so much Pokemon stuff. It's amazing. And I wouldn't have met this guy if it wasn't for YouTube. And he's probably part of the reason I moved to Oregon. And I think it just, when you meet people, it opens doors that wouldn't have otherwise opened. Even if it's kind of a subtle thing, right? It doesn't even mean this person got you millions of views. It doesn't even mean this person directly, instantly changed your life. I think it's just, if you collaborate with somebody, or at least have the opportunity to talk to them because you're kind of in the same sphere, making similar videos, it affects you. You meet somebody, you get an idea of who they are, and it changes you at least a little bit. And the more that this happens, the more you change, and hopefully it's for the better. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So the ability to collaborate with anybody you want, slide into people's DMs in your sphere, it's fun. It's cool. It's very enjoyable. And I love it. Augie, so did you have anybody where you got to meet because of YouTube that you otherwise would not have got to meet?
Yeah, I was pretty kind of lone wolf with my channel just because I was recording all my videos and then moving in America, then moving to Europe for 9 months, releasing them. So I was kind of really solo mission. I did, virtually meet a lot of people. A lot of people reach out, "Oh, hey, love the stuff." And I would get to meet them through that. And that was cool. I mean, you do gain some level of fame by creating content and growing a following on there. So, there's another little pro. And I guess that's the same thing as authority, right? You're gaining this authority, this fame in this niche. So there's that pro again showing up. But there's so many pros to creating a YouTube channel or going full time or even part time. I mean, just starting one. Money is one of them. Getting more money. The collaboration part that you mentioned is huge, and it not just for me meeting celebrities or meeting other creators, but just meeting people in the basketball world. I remember one time I was just watching some random game in Germany. It was a day off for us, and I didn't have any practice or any games, so we went and watched some other game, and there multiple people came up to me and were like, "Oh, hey, I watched your videos. I'm on your email list. I bought one of your products." And I was like, "Whoa, it's crazy!" All the way over here in Germany, and they were like, "What are you doing here?" They had no idea that I played in Europe. There's why? I thought you lived in California. And I'm just like, "Oh yeah, I actually play, for the Cuxhaven Baskets is where I was playing at the time." And they're like, "Oh, no way, crazy." And even to this day, I don't upload on that channel anymore. It's gone from, 500,000 views a month all the way down to maybe 50,000 views a month at this point, or even lower. But I'm a varsity basketball coach. So we go to these tournaments nowadays and people are like, hey, baller boot camp. And I'll just like, even like over this past summer, there was a dad who came up to me like, oh, I want to thank you so much. I've been using your videos for years and blah, blah, blah. Why don't you upload anymore? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing this full time coaching now and got this other thing called VidChops. So, but yeah, there's that, right? There's that collaborating. It's not collaborating, but that meeting of new people, and they look at you like an expert, and you can just feel good about that.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So it sounds like this one is mostly just a pro. I think in general, meeting new people, you have enough control over who you meet that it's probably only going to be a good thing. You can kind of tell talking to somebody over DMs even that if they're worth meeting or not. And in your case, meeting fans of the channel, people that your videos really helped. I mean, that's just positive, right? They're like, hey, man, I love what you do. And that always feels nice. People are supportive. It's validation. So I would say this one is it's a straight up pro for the most part. You might get some negative comments or whatever, but I think ultimately I've found the attention I've gotten from the internet. Sure, again, lots of negative comments, but ultimately you're still getting a lot of attention. And I think that in and of itself is a certain amount of validation. And then when you do meet people in real life, I always find they're really nice. It's only like the keyboard warriors, right? The people who are like, this guy's voice is annoying. Like, they're not going to say that to your face. They're usually kind of cowardly. So I think the people is pretty much always a good thing. And I can't stress that enough. Most people are pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. And the thing is, getting to know people, like now you have a little bit of power to where you can outreach or reach out to people and actually get a reply, right? I mean, like for me, right? If I never created any basketball content or whatever, and I was just, a high school coach or whatever, and I wanted to reach out to somebody in the basketball world for whatever reason who is quote unquote famous or, has a lot of clout and followers online, I could hit them up on Instagram. I could comment. They're not going to probably get back to me, 9 times out of 10. They're just going to kind of, because you get a lot of those, right? You have to ignore some at some point, you can't reply to every single comment at some point if you grow. But with the following, that just allows you to get into their DMs and get replies and, just advance yourself in that in your career, in that niche, in that world. So I think, the pros and cons of YouTube channels, like when it comes to business and furthering yourself in the career, in that niche, like there is cons of like, oh, it's challenging and stuff like that. But like, it's mostly pros. Like you should be doing that. If you're not doing that, then, in this day and age, then, your competitors are going to do it and they're going to pass you up. So you definitely, want to be creating content if that's your goal, to have an online business and make money online and maybe eventually be your own boss. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Couldn't agree more. And so moving on to the next and the final topic, I would argue is one of the most important things, is with YouTube, you get the ability to refine your work habits. I personally have always had a tumultuous relationship with work. I am always happy to have done work. It feels great to do something, to kind of carry a certain amount of pressure and then to see yourself succeed. And there is a satisfaction in that is undeniable. And, I've had periods of time where I have too much to do. I've had periods of time where I barely have anything to do. And then obviously more moderate periods of time. But all of this I've come to appreciate having at least some work to do. But at least maybe a guy like me, it isn't always like I'm moody and I don't always feel like working. And when I was working a 9-to-5 job, you're kind of stuck in this standard schedule where you are expected to work 9 to 5 or something similar. And some days I don't know, I was just a moody guy and I couldn't really sit down and do what I needed to do. And I don't know. I just kind of felt like a piece of shit, to put it bluntly. But YouTube kind of allowed me to flow with my moodiness, and not just flow, but actually like look into what is causing these mood swings, what is causing a bout of laziness or a bout of productivity. How can I cultivate myself to be more productive? How can I get out of a rut? I think when you have a normal job, like and you're someone like me, where it's kind of hard to predict. Like, I don't know how I'm going to feel when I wake up tomorrow. I don't think anybody really knows, but I think for some people it's more volatile than others. I've it's allowed me to explore what actually does feed my motivation. So one thing I'll do, I'll work a bit and then go to the gym. I'll work a bit, go for a run. I'll work a bit, meditate, and then come back to it. And I that's harder to do with a normal job. It's if I'm not feeling great someday, then I can do a little bit of work, and then tomorrow I can be more productive. All of this is mostly a pro because it's allowed me to explore myself and get to know myself better and figure out how I actually thrive. Whereas if I had been in that standardized environment for the last 10 years, I think I would still be, I don't know, just kind of resenting the rigid schedule, still wondering like, okay, well, if this doesn't work, then what does? And it always sucks to know what you don't want to do and what doesn't work for you, but to not know what does work for you. So YouTube has given me the knowledge of what does work for me. How do I flow with this? That can be a beautiful thing. The con of this is, I mean, it's easy to fall into, oh, I don't feel like working, so I guess I just won't really do anything today. That can end up making you do things at the last minute. There's no one telling you what to do, so you could end up working with like the worst of your habits. You can end up just being someone who isn't very organized. Whereas in a normal job, you had somebody there that was keeping you accountable, essentially. A boss that was giving you a paycheck, and you are accountable to this person. So you have to do that. Augie, I'm curious, like, do you feel like YouTube helped you refine your work habits? Like, you seem like somebody who, correct me if I'm wrong, you seem more like consistent mentally than maybe I am. Like, did you feel like YouTube was kind of an easy switch for you, or how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I am normally pretty self-disciplined when it comes to stuff, I still set my alarm for 6 a.m. every day and all that kind of stuff. But I definitely struggle with all the same stuff. Like, we've been talking about on this podcast for weeks now. Like, I'm trying to get back into it and I still haven't. So, there is a question of why. And we talked about it, I think, last week about how I feel like I'm overthinking it now. But, for me, like once I set my mind to something, I'm like, I'm going to do this. Like, and I think that's part of the reason why I'm a little worried as well about uploading, is because okay, I'm going to do this. Like, I know what it means. Like, it means like consistency. It means like dealing with the writer's block. It means like sitting down and essentially writing a script, which is like almost like writing an essay, right? Like, I mean, in school, you're like, oh, I have to write an essay. It's due in 5 weeks. Oh, well, imagine having to do that, 2 times a week for each YouTube video. And although I'm not going to script them out fully like that, there is like, that process. And so, yeah, I mean, with the Baller Bootcamp channel, I was just so hungry at the time to make it work and stuff. I was doing everything myself when I started, all the editing, all that kind of stuff. And I was just hungry, and it was almost like the perfect storm. I was, playing basketball professionally in Europe at the time. So I was like, my schedule was wide open. I had the best of both worlds. I was getting paid to play basketball, and that was my income. And so I had no pressure on me to earn from YouTube. And then I was, had the freedom of the time freedom to go and upload and focus on it. So I would spend, a long time on my stuff. And without any pressure financially to make money from it. And it was kind of doing it part-time, but spending a little bit more than part-time on it. So, my advice to people is, if you are working a job and you're like, I want to start on YouTube, I know it'll help me, then just get to a 1 video a week upload schedule. I think pretty much everybody can handle that, whether you are working 50 hours a week or not. You can record 4 videos in a month. And it's not even like you have to sit down and hit record once a week. You can batch record 2 videos at a time. Do that, the first day of the month, every month, I'm going to sit down and batch record 2 videos. And then on the 15th of every month, I'm going to sit down and batch record 2 videos. And then that gives you time to get them edited, thumbnails, published, all that kind of stuff. And that's a good way to go about it. Because imagine, like I said earlier, like working 4 years while doing YouTube, uploading once a week. Like after 4 years, you were going to have a following. You were going to have something substantial to where, whether you can quit your job or not, my guess is if you do everything right as far as building a business behind it by selling products and merch and getting sponsors and just playing the YouTube game right by creating great videos with great thumbnails, titles, all that kind of stuff, you'll be in a position where you can maybe not quit your job, but maybe go part-time or whatever. And that's what I recommend. Like, have fun with it. Make it as painless as possible. Hire an editor if you don't like editing, and just go from there and enjoy the process. Because, like I said, the pros really outweigh the cons. I'm one to preach, but I think everybody should be creating content. It's obviously with VidChops, we want people creating content, but if your goal is to be an authority in some niche on some topic, then you got to create content these days.
Definitely. I totally agree. And creating content it's a way to refine your opinions on things and to really become, as you said, an authority, at least in like your own space. Maybe you aren't going to get super famous, but I think the more you create, the better idea you have of what you actually think and believe. And you can see what people respond to, what people don't. And this can instill within you, I think, a stronger set of values and beliefs that will carry you through life more easily, more beautifully, and would recommend. It's a beautiful thing. And so with that, I think it's time to wrap things up here and to let's summarize what we talked about. So the pros and cons of YouTube, a tumultuous thing indeed. So the pros and cons, keep in mind the 5 things that I'm going to summarize here. Everything has a light and a dark side. It's something to celebrate and something to be aware of, because we don't want to romanticize YouTube. I don't want people to quit their jobs and think that they're going to wake up every morning like a spring chicken and work 12 hours because they're just so passionate and make millions of dollars. That just isn't how it works. So let's summarize what we talked about here. Number 1, the freedom to work when you want. You can set your own schedule. That is great. You can work out in the middle of the day, do whatever you want, hang out with your friends. Great. Lots of freedom. You can imagine the dark side of that. We already talked about it. 2, the opportunity to be creative on a daily basis. If you're someone like me, you need to express yourself. There's a certain amount of pressure you have to carry, but also it is a big opportunity to transmute your pain, your doubts into something that is enjoyable for people to watch. Let's be realistic about the light and the dark sides of that. Number 3, you get to deeply explore a subject of your choosing. This is a way to make yourself accountable, to actually explore something in a deep way, to read more books, to learn how to speak about this thing that you're passionate about in a way that resonates with people. The problem with that, it might become a job. You might get sick of it. You might get kind of jaded about this. Maybe you start attracting people to your channel that you don't really like, and then you're like, well, is there something about this that is like, why am I attracting these people to my channel? You might start asking yourself deep questions like this, and that can kind of suck. So number 4, you can collaborate with anybody willing. You get to meet lots of people. This one, mostly a good thing. The only thing is negative YouTube comments might get to you on a bad day. Number 5, you get the ability to refine your work habits. Again, because you're able to set your own schedule, you get to kind of flow with whatever moodiness you have. You get to figure out how to deal with your fluctuating emotions, because we're all people, right? We're not robots, and that can be complicated. And YouTube, at least for me, has been a great opportunity to figure out what motivates me, what doesn't, how do I balance myself, and that has been a valuable thing. And with that, that is the end of the episode. Make sure to check out VidChops.com so you can take the burden of editing off your back and make your YouTube experience even better. You know, you don't get bogged down. You're not lost in the details. So check it out. And with that, I really hope you got some value out of this. You know, Augie and I have been doing this for years, and YouTube, it's a double-edged sword, and we just want to give people a realistic idea of what to expect, what you can get out of it, and things to be aware of. And with that, I'm Grant, here with Augie. I hope you have a wonderful day.